Sunday service. Hello. I'm actually doing this on a Sunday. That's pretty novel. I think I usually end up just doing them randomly now because life is busy and chaotic and crazy. But yeah, hello. Here we are, actually doing it on a Sunday. I'm going to keep this one simple. I thought I would just talk about how I ended up being a composer for video games, like without getting into insane levels of detail. Maybe I could just talk through how I got here in terms of career and creative choices and stuff. So, I don't know, is that useful? It could be. I'd also love to hear if you're a composer or musician or whatever you do, post in the comments how you got there. It's just people's journeys are interesting. Sometimes it's hard work, good luck, any kind of combination of those things. So I think it's of interest. I was just checking I was recording. I did a tutorial video a few weeks ago, and I just was talking to a turned off camera for about 20 minutes. So I'm a little overcautious now. Anyway. So my career is, I think it's as a sound designer and composer for video games. It's more usual for people of my age. I'm 45. Yes, 45. Younger people now, I think there's courses and university and stuff like that tailored towards being in the games industry, which didn't exist when I was younger. So I was a little computer nerd when I was a kid. When I was 9, I got a Commodore 64. My parents thought it would be just a little phase and I'd forget about it in a week, but I was obsessed with my Commodore. I played it relentlessly all through sunny days when the other kids were outside. I was indoors playing Outrun and Last Ninja and Space Harrier and games like that. And eventually I got an Atari 520 ST, I think that's right. And I loved that just as much. That was when I moved to Cyprus when I was a little older. Then we moved to Dubai in the Middle East, and friends of mine over there were really obsessed with early versions of Macs, like the Mac Classic. I ended up getting a Mac LC, which had a 40 megabyte hard drive, which is pretty amazing these days. But it was a cool machine. There weren't many games on it, but the ones that were there, I guess, in retrospect, were like indie games just made by a few people. And I found those fascinating, and I kind of like dug into them. I pulled all the sounds out of the games and listened to the sounds because it was very easy back then to like get under the hood and just mess with stuff. And I guess it was about that time I found my first tracker. I don't remember what my first one was called. A tracker is a pretty old school nerdy way of making music where you get like looks like an Excel sheet with 4 columns basically, and you can just put in references to sounds and what pitch to play them at and then run it, and then so you get 4 tracks of audio, and then whatever like samples you put in, it'll trigger them. I mean, obviously there's much more advanced versions of the same thing now, but it was super basic and lo-fi back then. But using the sounds I ripped out of video games on my Mac, I was able to make some first basic songs. Never with any intention of being a musician in my later life. I just always loved music, I guess. But my parents, neither of them were musicians, but they both loved music, and I grew up with a lot of music in the house. I played guitar with my dad from a young age, and we would all sing along to songs in the evenings and stuff. We were, musical in that sense. And I kept doing that, and the songs got more and more advanced, to a certain level. And then when I moved back to the UK for university, I did a course in time-based media, which was a very loose early media course at the University of West England in Bristol. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I liked doing stuff in like Photoshop and making animations and like writing and doing music. I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I wasn't really any more specific than that. So I kind of moved around doing bits and pieces in that area. And then I kind of got into like the goth scene in Bristol, and yeah, it's very musical, and I was starting to get more interested in music at that point. Um, and these little basic songs that I'd done, I started putting more work into them, and I was going out watching bands all the time. I kind of wanted to try it out myself, so I took my first few songs that were a bit more advanced. I came up with a band name. I had a comedy goth band called Sneaky Bat Machine. I took those tracker songs and I started making tapes of them and like selling those tapes at like goth festivals, like the Whitby Goth Festival. And people liked them. So eventually I decided to get two friends of mine to play on stage with me, and we started doing gigs as Sneaky Bat Machine. Went really well. To this day, people still like Sneaky Bat Machine. I mean, it's very niche and it was ridiculous, but people enjoyed it. So from there, eventually I moved into a more industrial band called Goth. There was turnaround of band members, but same principle of me like writing the music, and then I would teach people how to play the parts, and they would in for live versions would contribute and stuff. Anyway, that went well in its own way, in its underground sort of industrial scene kind of way. We were doing gigs all over. We played America a couple of times, and we were starting to get fans and stuff. And one day I bumped into backstage at a festival a guy who liked my music called Graham Norgate, who it turned out was the composer from GoldenEye and Time Splitters. And I just lost my shit because I was obviously, I'd still been playing video games, and at that point I was obsessed with Time Splitters and the music specifically from it. I'd picked up on as something I loved. That became a friendship that became a working relationship where he started to get me to write bits of music, and eventually I joined Free Radical to work in-house as a sound designer. Um, I had my skills as basic skills as a musician were enough for me to be like a junior sound designer at that point, and that was me cutting my teeth in the industry. So I was a sound designer for many years professionally, and a musician as a side thing. I mean, I was still doing Goteki the whole time for like the first 10 years of my career, but I never really put the idea of being a composer for video games. I wasn't really considering that as a professional option. It just seemed just too good to be true. I was doing bits of music here and there if I could, and if there's ever an opportunity to write some music for a game, I would do so. But wasn't until about 6, 7 years ago I made the conscious choice to escalate the writing. I just decided that, as getting older, it's time to decide where my career was going. And while I love sound design and obviously still do, uh, I was probably more passionate about music than sound design overall. So I decided to really push it and promote myself more as a composer in on social media and stuff like that, and actively look for work as a composer in every forum and way that I could. And then when I got the work as a composer, make sure that I did as well as I possibly could, just to devote insane amounts of time to it and make sure the quality, communication, everything was good. And it went well. And that's basically where we are now. I've had a really good run of about 5 or 6 years of pushing up the composing to a higher level, and that's sort of escalating every time now. So, like many old school video game audio people, I came out of just being a musician, doing all that kind of stuff, and just realized that my passions for video games and music can boop join in the middle, and they have done. Uh, that's it. That's my little story. I think that'll do for this week. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I'd really love to hear how you got to where you are in your career and your passion and stuff. So just post in the comments about you and what you've done, and we can talk about it. It'd be very interesting. Okay, see you later.